All right, we are live. We're back in it. A little bit late starting, but we got some Sweet 16 games to recap right before we get to the Elite Eight tonight, and we should have some these Elite Eight matchups. First of all, are I know Jacob's not too excited, like me and him talked about because of the lack of upsets, but man, like these Elite Eight games are insane. These are some great matchups. We're gonna have some that Bama Duke game tonight.
Oh yeah,
That has
everyone's gonna be tuned into
potential
that.
to that has
The all-time
potential to be
classic.
something insane.
Mhm.
Let me tweet these links out and stuff before we start talking too much. But but yeah, what do you guys think? What are you looking at from this weekend? Where or from the last 2 days? Where should we start?
I mean, we could just start on Thursday night and kind of get to the best games. I mean, both the best games. It's ironic that we're probably the ones that were watched by the least amount of people. The ones that were like the late games.
Mhm.
But I guess we'll start. Guess we'll start with Thursday game, the BYU Alabama game on Thursday.
Yeah, it turns out
We
BYU
could start
being
there, I guess.
319th in the nation in 3-point defense did not set up well for
Yeah, it
them
looks
in
like
that one.
Yeah.
Bama dropped
What
113.
what an atrocious defensive performance by BYU in that game. I feel like most mid-major teams played Alabama better than BYU did. If
Can
I
I
had
just ask? And obviously, like my Bama hate is going to have like it's going to influence this, but like honest question to like because I honestly feel this way, like whether it's Bama or not. Like, are you guys happy to see like this brand of like this NBA brand of basketball just like chucking 3-pointers, like making its way into the college? Because there's been so much talk about like how bad the NBA product is, and like now it's creeping its way into college basketball. And I said it the other night where like if Bama wins a national championship somehow, like playing this style of basketball, you're going to start seeing a lot more teams play this way. And like I don't think it's good for college basketball to have like that style of basketball like manifest itself like this in the game. Like I personally am not like, and I'm not. I like I said, I'm genuinely not just saying that as a Bama hater, but like they took 53 3-pointers the other night. Like they're putting up NBA 3-pointer numbers. Like which like credit to them for making the shots. I mean, it wasn't too hard because BYU didn't bother to try to defend them, but I'm just I think this style being so successful in college basketball doesn't bode well for a sport where we love, you know, the fundamentals of it and it being the opposite of NBA basketball where it's just who can make the most 3-pointers. I don't want to see that like make its way to the college game. And I don't know if you guys feel the same, but
I think it's Alabama is everything wrong with college basketball nowadays. The just the lack of physicality, just kind of the
Mhm.
go up the floor. Uh, it's all about me. Uh, Alabama has a very me personality type of basketball. The They get all these transfer portal guys just because and put them together and throw it out on the court. We see it a lot with Alabama. See it with Illinois. I think Illinois plays the same type of basketball, just shot chucking the whole game. I'm not a fan. Not a fan of how Alabama is coached.
Yeah, I'm honestly not a huge fan of it either. I do like that it's been a different brand of basketball than the NBA, but I don't know. It's kind of just where the game is going at the end of the day. I think there's only going to be more and more teams chucking up 50 plus threes a game, kind of as the years go on. But no, I'm not a big fan of it, and hope they lose. So
I don't think this is a problem. This is not going to be something you see become a huge issue. First of all, for a lot of different reasons. One, it is significantly harder to pull off this style in a college setting than in a pro setting. For one, it is harder to guard in the NBA. It's a lot harder to play defense. It's a lot easier to defend in college because the three-point line is shorter. So guys don't have to run out as much to close out. It's a lot less space to pull that off. And you just have to factor in, I mean, that's a lot of threes. The level of shooting in college is not what you see in the professional ranks. And yeah, you see all these teams, still playing now. I mean, Duke, they're, like top 250 or barely top 250, if that, in tempo. Florida's not that fast of a team. Houston obviously is slow as it gets. Auburn's not a particularly fast playing team. Tennessee, like basically all the Elite Eight, you're not really seeing like a ton of just really run and gun teams besides Bama. They would almost be the outlier. UConn just won back-to-back titles playing a pretty slow style of basketball. I just don't think you'll see like Bruce Pearl or John Shire or any of these coaches who are pretty set in their ways just be like, we're just going to change everything that we do and we're just going to start chucking threes. There's zero chance Dan Hurley starts doing that. There's zero chance Bill Self starts doing that. Rick Pitino obviously notoriously has teams that are horrible shooting teams. So no, I don't think this is going to be like an existential problem. This is clearly just a Bama thing. I don't think a lot of coaches want to do this. I think that, I don't think Tom Izzo, his teams are pretty poor shooting. I don't think that he wants to just start picking up the style of basketball and because a lot of the time, like some of these shooters there are not really very many 3-and-D players in the college game. And that's why it works in the NBA, because they can defend also. There aren't that many of those players in college. So it's really only going to be a thing until somebody decides to, start to recruit only shooting and make that a thing. But, like Illinois shoots a ton of threes. They didn't go anywhere. They lost second round. UConn went on a 30-0 run in the Elite Eight last year against them. So, no, I think this is just a Bama thing. This is just Nate Oates being Nate Oates. This is the style of basketball he wants to play. I don't know if you guys know this. He was a math teacher at some point.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know if that hasn't been said on a broadcast 8 times every half. But, yeah, this is just what he wants to do. Threes and layups only. So, it is very
He's a total
NBA.
piece of shit, but he used to be a teacher, so.
Yeah, so, but no, there's like, John Shire is not going to start that. And like some of these more successful teams, like the way to close the gap on talent is to play like how Drake played and slow it down and grind it to a halt. If they tried to run and gun with Missouri, they would have lost by 15-20. So I don't think you'll start seeing more teams do that. The only way you'll see that is if there's a huge influx of talent in certain areas and, defense still kind of, you still have to get stops. Now, granted, Bama's that's why they're so dangerous, because they've mastered if you're hitting 25 threes, it doesn't really matter, how many points you give up, you're probably going to win. So, yeah, I think this is just a them thing. I do not think you will see anyone just wake up and be like, we have to do this now because Alabama is doing it. BYU had a horrible defensive game plan against them, just going under every screen, and they really just allowed so many wide open shooters in that game to set their feet, and it was a mess. I mean, and I don't think Bama's a selfish team either. Like, they had 27 assists in that game. They are unselfish. They pass. They run great stuff on offense. So, yeah, I think overall, I don't think it's bad for the sport. I don't think Alabama winning is bad. I don't think that style is bad. I think, in the NBA, that, it's kind of the opposite. That is how you close the gap on talent, is you try and outshoot the other team. So, yeah, it's not as simple. It might come to fruition a few years from now if if younger coaches get involved and they just start looking at the fact that basketball really is a math problem at the end of the day, and the team that makes the most threes usually wins. So, yeah, but wouldn't be concerned. this is not going to be a problem. And yeah, this is just a Bama thing.
Yeah, and Bama was doing a good job, like running BYU up 3-point line on defense. That's basically what this game came down to. Is like they were just giving up twos to BYU the whole time, and then responding with threes. And it's like you say, basketball is a math problem. Threes more than two. So, I mean, if you can defend them and run them off the 3-point line, Bama was just basically letting them have whatever they want when they got inside the 3-point line, and then just going down and responding with the three.
Yeah,
This was basically turning
100%.
it around.
UConn did that to Purdue last year in the national championship game. They let Zach Edey get whatever he wanted, and they just tried to cut off the Purdue 3-point shooting, and that's how they beat him.
And I mean, and that's obviously it's not going to work against everybody because now Bama's going to go and play Duke today, and it's like Duke is a big team, and they defend their asses off. So like you're not going to get off 50-something 3-pointers against a team that big. Like they're not going to let it happen. So like it was definitely a favorable matchup for Bama to play that style when BYU was defending as lazy as they were.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited for that Bama Duke game later. I think the whole country is honestly going to be tuned in. That's definitely going to be a clash, though. Honestly, but especially if they're hitting that many crazy threes. But
yeah, Mark Sears played insanely good. He was hitting some deep, very deep shots.
It was one of his best games. Yeah.
That's probably that might be his best performance at Alabama. BYU they just couldn't make their threes. Like they had some good looks, they just could never make one. And after like the initial start, BYU kind of got behind. At first BYU was pushing the pace against Bama, and that didn't really work. Once Alabama started raining threes. Aiden Holloway played good. Hit a lot of threes as well for Alabama. So I think against the team, I don't think they score as much against the team that actually plays perimeter defense. But Alabama, I mean, they deserve to be in the Elite Eight. They didn't. I figured they would fall up. They've had their problems as a team. They're kind of the better version of what BYU is. They've had their problems defensively. I figured they'd slip up somewhere, but they've made it to the Elite Eight. So we'll see how they do against Duke.
Yeah, the biggest problems some of these teams have with Bama is BYU got dragged into it. That they see how they see the defensive numbers on for Bama, and essentially try to get dragged into playing their style. And like BYU got dragged into trying to outscore Bama, outshoot Bama. St. Mary's got dragged into that. So Duke is, if they get dragged into a situation where Bama's controlling the tempo of the game, they're in trouble. If they actually, get Bama in more half-court possessions, they slow that game down, they should be in pretty good shape. But that's what Duke really cannot afford to do. It's just try to go up and down with them. Just because they have the personnel to do it, they're that's just not their style. So if they're able to dictate the terms of how fast that game is played, they're in pretty good shape. But if Bama starts running on them, that could be danger.
So that should about do it for that game.
Mm-hmm.
The next one was, which I don't know if there's much to even was the Texas Tech, or the I'm all over the place. The Florida.
Maryland.
But that was. Maryland hung around in the first half, but Florida was their deeper team, their bigger team, and like the depth aspect of it caught up to Maryland, and Florida just had guys that can go get rebounds and do whatever they need to do, and they were really able to take control of this game. And obviously the big story out of the game was this Kevin Willard situation that's been taking place all week,
Mhm.
and like you have to wonder how much that Kevin Willard situation hurt Maryland in this game. Just having a coach that's completely distracted and focused on everything else besides that team, seemingly, and it seemed like they came out with a good game plan in the first half and were able to keep it close, and then it just got away from them in the second half. But you have to wonder how much that distraction did hurt Maryland in this game, and like was that potentially what cost them this game. But the Gators keep rolling. Like I said, not their best for they haven't been. I definitely don't think Florida in this tournament has been the same Florida team that we saw coming in, but they're taking care of business, and now they're one win away from the national champion or from the Final Four, and we'll try to punch that ticket tonight. So, thoughts on that Florida Maryland game, and yeah, obviously the Kevin Willard situation.
Yeah, I was definitely hoping Maryland would be able to come on top for this one, but I don't know. The final outcome is probably somewhere where I thought it would be, realistically, score wise. But after the first half, I did definitely think Maryland stood a way better chance than I thought coming into it. But with Condon out in the first half, that they kind of just took advantage of that. And Queen did have a good game. Maryland didn't play particularly bad. Um, they didn't shoot great, but they didn't necessarily shoot terrible. But I don't know. It's kind of what I envisioned this game, the outcome to be. In all honesty, the distraction from Willard probably did have a lot to, or some to do with it. But either way, I just feel like Florida was the better team coming into this game. But I would have liked to have seen Maryland get it done, but it didn't work out that way.
I think Maryland. I mean, they played good in the first half. Jacoby Gillespie and Derek Queen both had great games. They were hitting their shots. Kind of Florida. Honestly, Florida. I know Travis, you bring it up. I think they're kind of like just sandbagging and just playing with their food at this point. I knew that Maryland game when Maryland was ahead and sort of like pushing the pace. I was like, you're kind of just waiting for Florida to take over. It was the same thing in the UConn game. They just kind of like Florida has a tendency. They have like that potential's there. They're just going to turn it on out of nowhere, and just take over the game. And I think that's the case here. And of course, all the outside interference with Maryland that might have hurt some of the effort as a team all around. But it was a good coaching performance on the team I think is the best team in the nation out of this tournament currently. So
yeah, they this was one of their more impressive tournament games, just games they've had in some time overall. They scored 87. Condon played 14 minutes on the game.
Right.
They had 6 guys score in double figures. They had 9 guys score on the game. Walter Clayton made 3 shots. They scored 87 points despite that. Shot 50% from the field. Yeah, they're the best team, which I think everybody knew going into the tournament. They're certainly, this is not their best game. This is not remotely near the best they can do. And they still just tanked a really good team off the floor. And I think most encouraging for Florida was they finally had a good free throw shooting game. They had 21 free throws. They made 16 of them. They're not a good free throw shooting team. Statistically, this game, they seem to finally make some free throws. So, yeah, this is, no surprise for Florida here. I do feel for Maryland with the whole Willard situation, that's a mess. That's a whole other separate conversation, how they're just getting completely shafted by this guy. So ultimately, we'll see what happens. But by the sound of it, seemed as if, Maryland played hard. Queen had one of his better games. But yeah, Florida's too good. They are that good of a team. And I would say the Willard stuff absolutely did not help did not help Maryland going in, and who knows where that program is going to be next year, because they had a really good year this year, and it doesn't sound like they are going to have remotely the same group coming back, either in the form of the players or the coach. So tough times for them.
Yeah, it's going to be a completely new team.
And you just hate
regardless
to see
of what happens.
You just hate to see the best season Maryland has had in a long time, like, come down to that and kind of get derailed by all this stuff, like, right at the end of the year. Like, it sucks. And, like, you feel for the guys on that team that, like, in Maryland fans that, like, after a season like that, like, just like, this is going to be what the season's remembered by. Like, not all the great moments and the buzzer beater against Colorado State. Like, no, it's going to be this Kevin Willard stuff and him not being able to keep his mouth shut all week going into the Sweet 16.
Yeah, very disappointing. Very disappointing.
It sucks to be on the receiving end of a coach leaving when you're having a great year. I've had it happen before, had one foot out the door the whole season. I think he's probably had his foot out the whole season here, but it just kind of sucks. And ultimately that's what is going to hurt. You're going to feel incomplete as a fan. So,
like, how hard is it to just shut up?
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have to say anything. He didn't have to answer any of these questions and run his mouth all week. Like, just shut up, dude. Like, deal with it on the
PR
side.
department really failed him there. Like, why are you opening your mouth? Answering any of these questions is pretty annoying to watch there. And also, I think we've talked about this a little. Why would anyone want Kevin Willard to be their coach after all of this? Like, I have no idea why Villanova would want him. But here we are. They can do much better than that guy.
And I guess Maryland's trying hard to keep him, but it's just like, if Maryland did somehow retain him here, it's like, how do you mend that fence and just, like, move past all this now? If he was to go, like, it feels to me like he's completely burnt that bridge to the ground. Like, where even if he did come back, it's like,
well,
you're going to have to answer to all those fans. You're going to have problems getting players to come play there now. Like, he's done so much damage to that program if he was to stay there now with how he's handled all this.
He's in the perfect time to be doing this because of transfer portal stuff and NIL. They can just, in theory, get a new team immediately, and it won't really that stuff doesn't really matter. It doesn't sound like a lot of those guys liked playing for Willard anyway. Like, they probably did, but they're asking the guys at podium after games, like, what do you like about Kevin Willard? They're like, well, he pays us well. Like, the money's good. It's like, anything else? So just kind of weird that that's the first thing that comes up. Kevin Willard's a good basketball coach. I think he did a really good job at Seton Hall, and he's done well at Maryland. But it's just a weird dynamic.
He has a weird relationship with the players there. Like, I don't know if you read the piece about him and Derek Queen earlier this year, like the same piece where if he was white and European, he'd be the first overall pick. The same piece that came out of, like, he's telling these stories about, like, Derek Queen, where it's just like there was one earlier this year where Derek Queen made a bad pass, and Willard was getting at him and was like, what the hell was that pass? And Derek Queen was like, bet you would have liked it if it went in. It's like, it's just a weird relationship for a player, especially a freshman, a player and coach to have.
Yeah, definitely.
Apparently, he burnt his bridges at Seton Hall as well. So he's burning bridges at Maryland and Seton Hall. So we'll see what happens.
There's footage of him doing the same routine when he was at Seton Hall, and he's like, I got no idea what I'm doing. And that was like,
I remember
the
that.
Same thing when he left Seton
I do
Hall.
remember that.
Well, anything else on that game, though? Maryland, Florida?
I think that probably concludes that one.
I think I'm excited for this Florida team. I think they're the most fun team to watch left in the tournament. So we'll see how the Texas Tech game goes, but I think Florida's got it tonight. So
yeah, I'm definitely excited for that matchup as well.
Well, speaking of as much, we can talk next about the Texas Tech Arkansas game because
Mhm.
we had a few games in this Sweet 16 that have definitely been the best games of this tournament so far, and that
Mhm.
Texas Tech Arkansas game was one of
Oh
them.
my
Oh,
gosh.
definitely.
And
That was such a good
I,
one.
yeah, I mean, I'm not going to come on here and rag on Cal as much as I would want to because I still think he did a great job getting them there and turning this team around. But just a awful performance down the stretch by Arkansas. They really gave this thing up to Texas Tech, and I'm like Darian Williams is one of the most underrated players in the nation, and he really as I mean he went 2 for 12 in the first half in this game, and then just absolutely lit it up down the stretch in this game, and was able to uh, play a huge part in clawing Texas Tech back into this one, and a huge win for the Red Raiders here because they looked. I mean, Arkansas was probably about one shot away multiple times from having this thing in the bag, and they could just never quite. I guess to take a page out of Cal's book, they had Texas Tech in the coffin, but they forgot the nails because
Yeah.
Arkansas seemed like they had this thing in control for a lot of the game, but Tech was able to claw their way back into it.
Yeah, I thought the game was completely over with, to be honest with you. At one point, I really did not expect Texas Tech to be able to come back and ultimately end up winning in overtime. But it definitely was one of the better games of the whole tournament. I was actually thinking about going to bed a little early that night because I had to work the next morning. But
mhm.
I'm glad I ended up staying up for the conclusion of that one. So
I had passed out. I think in the middle of the Duke Arizona game, and I woke up and the Texas Tech Arkansas game was on, and it was just as overtime was starting. I was like, "What the heck is going on?" I missed something wild, but I just watched overtime. That was a crazy overtime. Probably
definitely
one
was.
of the best games of the tournament by far.
Yeah, that was disappointing, certainly from someone who wanted to see Arkansas win. Texas Tech is better than they are. I don't think anyone would argue that. It still doesn't ease the pain I'm sure they have of losing that. But Texas Tech made some big shots. They certainly were cold in the first half, but they saved their best for the last half of that game and overtime. Yeah, I mean, they just could not miss when they absolutely needed to have those shots, and it was Arkansas. They didn't get any points out of Boogie Flynn. They didn't get any points out of Ivisic. They only got 5 minutes out of Aduthiero. So it was they were kind of uncharacteristically shooting really well from three. They made 10 threes, which they usually do not do. So they got enough. They played well enough to win. But this was maybe the best effort they could have thrown at Texas Tech. Just with Janelle Davis that was his best game as an Arkansas player. And he played lights out for them. Missed a shot down the stretch that probably would ice the game. But yeah, ultimately Cal did a good job in the first half of that game managing it, and kind of some of the time that Cal just kind of allows running that motion offense that they usually try to do. You kind of saw Bruce Pearl do it with when Auburn was playing with Todd Pettiford. They're just like, we're probably not going to call anything here. We're just going to let Todd, find a shot type of thing. And they did that with some of their guards down the stretch. And like DJ Wagner had a horrible game. He played.
Cal did have
pretty
a
rough.
big fuck up here, though, the not fouling up three.
Sure.
there
Yeah.
at the
And that
end.
was, I think that, he is usually not one to do that often. A lot of those older coaches are not really on that trend. But yeah,
You figured he would
that
have
was,
learned from 08
yeah, really.
to foul
That
up
was
three,
probably
but
the wrong decision. And, Williams made that three with 9 seconds. So it wasn't as if it was like totally down to the wire there. But yeah, I think he ultimately wanted them to defend. And usually if it gets under like 5 seconds, that's usually when you pull the trigger and foul if you're not confident in your free throw shooting. So, yeah, I mean, that's a that's a gutsy win for Texas Tech. They're the better team. And ultimately, I think this is probably, the end of the game sucks, obviously, and they didn't end how they wanted it to. But this is almost like, I would say the Arkansas fan base is satisfied with the season as a whole. I do not think they are satisfied with losing how they did, obviously, as the Kentucky fans seem to be very satisfied with losing in the Sweet 16, which is new. But yeah, ultimately, good season for Arkansas. Texas Tech, better team, deserves to move on. Has the right to get shellacked here by Florida. So
I think that whole triangle of coaches, like, I mean, obviously we saw all three of them go down in the Sweet 16 with BYU and Kentucky and Arkansas. But I think all three of those fan bases in year one of their new regimes like walks away satisfied. Which the irony of all this is that the guy who really set all this up was Eric Musselman going to USC, and then USC seems to come out of that like that whole.
yeah,
I guess even it goes even further back because then it was the USC coach going to SMU that kind of like
yeah,
opened
Andy
up the door
Enfield,
for
yeah.
that opened up the door for Muss to go there. But all in all, it's kind of funny of that whole thing. It's like Muss is the one who set all that up by going to USC. Like none of these coaching changes would have ended up happening if it wasn't for Muss going to USC, and USC and Muss are the ones who come out of the big losers of all this, while the other three schools are all went down in the Sweet 16 and should be pretty satisfied with the seasons they had.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, Arkansas has, great recruiting class coming in. They're going to be active in the portal. They have a huge NIL collective. Kentucky's been super active on some of these transfers. They were, I think, the runner-up for Donovan Dent. So they're already hitting the portal pretty hard. So they should be really solid next year. And BYU obviously has the biggest fish of them all. Devonta coming in to play for them. So that's I think all three of those programs are super excited for future of what they can do there. So yeah, that should be fun. And I would, expect all three of those programs to be back in the Sweet 16 next year. So
Meanwhile, Muss is just sitting on the sideline there. The one
hoping
who
for a
made
better
it.
home court advantage. Yeah.
Yeah, he's the one who made all that happen.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just
Sharks
crazy, and it's
staying
like,
on. Yeah.
like you said, like it's. I said Muss, but really, like Andy Enfield is the one who really like
Yeah.
triggered all that. It's so insane that like we had all these huge coaching changes, and we're talking about teams in the Sweet 16, and it was all started by Andy Enfield leaving USC and going to SMU.
Yeah. Crazy.
But yeah, I mean, like great turnaround this season for Cal and Arkansas, though. I mean, I think uh, for as bad as it looked at points, like you have to walk away from the season viewing it as a success if you're Arkansas. The way Cal was able to get the ship righted there, and I mean, about as close as you can get to making it to the Elite Eight without getting it done. But I mean, a great turnaround for them regardless. And like there's going to be a lot of roster turnover there, so they're going to have to do a good job getting the right players in there. Because I mean, even with the turnaround this year, I think everybody agrees like it wasn't quite the right roster construction put together this year, and that hurt Arkansas. So they're just going to have to do a better job spending that money, and I guess be a little more choosy about the guys they pick, because I mean that's one of the top five most expensive rosters in the sport, and they still underperformed for the first 3 months of the season until they went to Rupp and got it turned around. So like they'll definitely I'm sure Cal will kind of do I don't know if he's going to surround himself with more people to help him make the decisions of who they bring in and give this money to, or but I'm sure they're going to change that process in some way of how they're evaluating these guys in the portal and constructing that roster.
Yeah, I think they're already on the track to doing that. And right now, I mean, I think they have a good system in place now, because you're right, they did throw a lot of money at a lot of guys who didn't really fit. And that's kind of a cautionary tale, because it happened with Indiana, happened with Kansas. They just were like, these are the best portal players. Let's go get them. And we'll worry about the consequences after, which they did not do a good job of that. I think Arkansas has a good system now where they're I think they're getting a GM, and I think Cal is going to be in charge of the high school recruiting, which has always been his area of expertise because he's the best recruiter in the history of the sport. And then after that, they're going to have a bit of a like, we're actually going to vet some of these guys before we just throw them into our system. Like, Ivisic at times was really good for Arkansas, but it was almost like, well, like if this guy went to a different school, I don't think he would have been at Arkansas. Like if he went to Georgia Tech, I don't think he would have gone to Arkansas. He only went to Arkansas because he went to Kentucky and he's following Cal. But other than that, there was really no like reason for him to be on the roster. So yeah, I think they're going to do a better job of building that roster, and I don't see them making that same mistake back-to-back years. A lot of these programs as well. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I think they should be in a pretty good place going forward.
And we've talked a lot about Arkansas, and we need to give a ton of credit to Grant McCasland and Texas Tech. Obviously, like year two for Grant McCasland at Texas Tech, and I don't think when he took that job, anybody viewed it as like a home run hire for Texas Tech or anything. Obviously,
I thought
like
so.
it was
a home run.
You thought it was a home run when they hired him out of North Texas, like.
Yes.
Well, hat tip to Jacob, but I don't think a ton of people, like, I don't think the general consensus was that it was a home run hire for them. And they were kind of still stuck in that Chris Beard era. And then he left and Mark Adams took the job. And so it was like a weird. And then obviously the way the Mark Adams stuff went south immediately was pretty crazy. And they were in rough shape after that, like, because they kind of had to pivot and get away from that whole Chris Beard era and start fresh with Grant McCasland, and that's what they did. And now it's year two of that era for McCasland, and he's got him in the Elite Eight. And I mean, we talk about the portal, like that's an example of a fantastic roster assembled out of the portal. Like they nailed it with their portal guys and like assembled an awesome roster, and they've just like I feel like they've flown under the radar all year, all the way to the Elite Eight now. And I mean, that team is just fearless, like because like they've had some rough performances here to start this tournament, and then obviously in this game. And it's just after the game, you hear McCasland talking about it, and he's like, like nobody was like, and like maybe he was not being completely truthful, and but he was like, no, he said nobody on that bench and like with that team was like nervous at any point in that game. Like he said they were down 16 and everybody was like, we got this. Like that team is just fearless. Like he assembled a great roster there, and he's just done a great job turning that program around immediately and kind of taking over after the Mark Adams disaster, and like to like in year two get them to the Elite Eight. And with this roster that he got a lot of guys out of the portal, and they just nailed it with their portal guys, and now they're a win away from the national championship. So ton of credit to McCasland and this Texas Tech team. And like they're gonna play Florida tough because this Tech team, man, that they don't blink. They're just a tough ass team. They don't feel the pressure in these situations. Like you gotta fucking bury them. You can't forget the nails against them because they will battle back whenever they need to. And like, yeah, they're like I said, ton of credit to them. They're a tough ass team.
Yeah, Graham McCasland is a great basketball coach. Going back to his time at North Texas, before then he was at Arkansas State. He was a Baylor assistant, so he's on the Scott Drew tree. Obviously got his chops. Made a round of 32 with North Texas by beating Purdue in the 2021 tournament in overtime. And they gave Villanova a decent-ish game. But ultimately, this is kind of impressive for a variety of reasons. The North Texas teams he coached were like really, really slow. They were a really slow tempo team. They were more about grinding it out on defense. That team's identity has totally changed now in his time at Texas Tech. They play much faster. They are much better shooting the ball. They're grittier. So for them now to be where they are, that's a huge success. They nailed it in the portal. And yeah, they are, they're a tough team. I think Florida's going to beat them. I don't think Florida's really going to struggle with them very much. But but they haven't been crushed. Texas Tech the entire season, in any of their losses, whether their first game, St. Joe's beat them by 1. I think Arizona beat them by 9. UCF beat them somehow, but it wasn't, all these games they had that they lost were close. So it wasn't until, really, they're, February 8th game at Arizona, they lost by 9 points. So if Florida's going to beat them, it should be, I would assume, a close-ish game. I would be surprised if it wasn't like Florida just in control for the entire time and then kind of pull away to win by like around 9 or 10. It's 7.5 now. So I think that's probably a fair spread for Texas Tech. So we'll see. But ultimately, Florida should beat them. They match up really, really well. Texas Tech has decent depth, but they don't have Florida depth. So this should be one that Florida takes it to them, I would assume.
You're going to have 2 guys, one of 2 coaches who are in year 2 at their programs who have just immediately elevated the programs they got to. And now one of those 2 guys, and Todd Golden and Grant McCaslin, is going to be going to a Final Four in year 2 at their program. That's what I say. These games, you got some great storylines in these games. And it's like that's a great – you're going to have, like I said, you're going to have 2 great younger coaches in year 2 who have just elevated their programs from the day they walked in the door. And one of those 2 guys, McCaslin or Golden, is going to be taking their team to the Riverwalk to play for a national championship.
I think that's the best story left in the tournament is the Florida Texas Tech game, in my opinion. Watching those 2 coaches, which one of those is going to make their first Final Four?
I mean, I think just in general with these Elite 8 matchups, like the coaching stories are fantastic because, I mean, you go through, I think is Izzo the only remaining coach who has won a national championship?
Yeah.
Okay, so Izzo, like, of all the 8 coaches left, like, Izzo's the only one who's won a national championship, and you got some real, like, veteran Hall of Fame coaches who have never won a national championship, who have been to Final Fours, that are going to look to finally break through and get their first national championship. And Bruce Pearl, Rick Barnes, Kelvin Sampson, like all 3 of those guys are Hall of Fame coaches, and they're going to be looking to finally break through and win a national championship. And am I like all 3 of those guys Hall of Famers? Any dispute there between those 3? Or
I mean, they're certainly on that track.
Yeah, I mean, I think all 3 of them are already Hall of Famers.
Izzo's already in the Hall, so.
Yeah, Izzo's already in it, and like I said, he's the only
rightly so
remaining coach who has won a national championship. And then you got, like we talked about, the Golden McCaslin matchup. You got Nate Oates, who went to a Final Four last year, trying to break through at Bama, and then you got John Shire, who took over for one of the greatest coaches of all time, looking to get to his first Final Four and see if he can bring Duke to a national championship with a guy who's going to be an absolute superstar in the NBA. Like, you do have some awesome storylines in these matchups.
Do we owe Jay Williams an apology for his Elite 8 picks? Man, had it hit on the head there. He had 7 of 8.
Yeah. Which is crazy.
John's,
the top 9 teams in KenPom, 8 of them are in the Elite 8. If you did your bracket, I saw this earlier. If you made your bracket and just picked the higher ranked KenPom team in every single game, you would have all 8 of the Elite 8.
Yeah,
that's crazy. Like, so if you just went through and just completely just went higher ranked team KenPom in every game, you'd be winning your bracket pool.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Well, yeah, that should. And then Thursday we had the Duke Arizona as well.
Yeah, the Duke Arizona. Yeah.
I mainly just I mainly just my biggest thing in that game, like obviously great win for Duke. They took care of business here, but I wanted to give, because we give him a lot of shit sometimes, but I wanted to give Caleb Love his flowers. Like he deserves it. Like, he's a guy where like I don't know if he's going to go on and play in the NBA. I don't know if he profiles as an NBA player. Or he's going to be a guy that plays overseas, but he's one of those guys, regardless of what he does in his professional career. Like we're all going to remember Caleb Love
Yeah,
as college
absolutely.
basketball fans. Like he's
Absolutely.
been one of the most exciting. On the good days and on the bad days, one of the most exciting college basketball players to watch for the last few years. Like, it is truly, for all the shit we give him when the bad Caleb Love shows up, he's been one of the most exciting. Where you turn on a Caleb Love game, you're going to be entertained, and he's going to be the show. And I mean,
Yeah, and
he went down on his sword, 35 points against Duke here, like played his absolute ass off and did everything he could to keep Arizona in that game. Just wanted to give Caleb Love his flowers for an awesome, awesome college career. That a guy, as college basketball fans, that we're all gonna remember watch playing in 5 years from now. We're gonna be like, God, like remember Caleb Love? Like that dude was you know, you turn on a game and whether he was the good version or the bad version, you were gonna be entertained, and like hell of a college career for Caleb Love. Like I said, we gave him some shit, but now that it's over and the dust has settled, like I do want to give him his flowers for an awesome college career.
He had a great game on Thursday night. 35 points, a shot, uh, 5 of 11 from three, 11 of 21. That's a pretty good game. The bad Caleb Love did not show up. He was not the reason Arizona lost to Duke. I know the big storyline with that. They kind of talked about how he'd say like he wanted to beat Duke more than like Arizona State, at like Arizona, and how he ended Coach K's coaching career in the tournament a few years back. It's crazy how long some of these guys have been in college, um, especially with like the fifth year and stuff, COVID years. So uh, wild story of a college career.
I was actually going to shit on him as well, but no, I got to give him his flowers. Like Travis said, he definitely went out on the right note. He gave it his all in the last game, played all 40 minutes of the game. He obviously didn't want to come out or anything like that, but no, Duke was the better team. Cooper Flagg played well, and he had 30 points, 3 blocks. No, Duke was the better team this game. So.
Yeah, Caleb Love was awesome. Caleb Love has that perfect profile of a guy who 5 years from now, someone's going to tweet out like a mixtape of him and be like, today's kids will never understand how gassy Caleb Love was. And that kind of thing, be like flashback to when Caleb Love retired Coach K in the Final Four. And that's kind of going to be his,
I can see that coming.
Right? His legacy. Yeah, like he's into the like Jimmer Fredette tier of college players, kind of. As for where he profiles at, like he will probably make an NBA Summer League roster. I don't know if he'll be drafted. So we'll see. It's a fairly deep guard class, and usually NBA teams are not drafting players who are that age unless they are that good and can play right away for an NBA team. But really fun college career for Caleb Love. You always knew you were going to get a lot of shots going into every game from him. And this game he performed. Arizona played well enough to win. They just defended horribly, and Duke felt like every three they took. So they played well enough, but Duke's better than they are, and the right team's moving on. Can't really say much there. There wasn't really much Duke did besides just 11 to 19 of their threes they made. That's gonna win a lot of games when you're making that many threes. So credit to them.
Matt, you brought up the draft stuff with Caleb Love, by the way. I did just want to mention real quick, I was listening to a podcast last night and they had a draft guy on, the podcast as well, and he said he thinks Todd Pettiford's NBA bound. I remember we had a debate about that.
I know, yeah.
a
I
while
would
back.
be surprised if he was. But yeah, if he is, then good on him.
I hope not. I hope
Yeah,
he sticks around
I'm sure,
another
yeah.
year. But yeah, I did hear that last night. I'm hoping that's not the case because I think he would be much better served to spend another year in college.
I think so as well, and I don't think he necessarily will defend NBA players great. That was my biggest criticism of him, is that he's not that big of a guard, and he's probably going to really struggle to defend NBA players. But he certainly can score with them. That's no doubt about that one. So if he goes, he goes. Good on him. But yeah, I think he should. I think he should definitely come back, and Auburn would really benefit from him coming back.
I guess we can start with the Auburn game since I brought up Pettiford for Friday, but like it'll be kind of out of order. But I just like to stick to on the Pettiford stuff real quick, like with just some of like our guy Rob made a great analogy on the show last night that like I can really see after he said it. Like Todd Pettiford is Brandon Jennings, like he's that kind of guard who it's just like he gets the ball in his hands and like he'll go through his ebbs and flows, but like when he gets the ball in his hand, like he's just a playmaker. Like he will score the ball from anywhere on the court. Like you don't even. They always like joke at Auburn that I don't even know if it's a joke, but they say he forgets the plays when like some of these where he'll just be like makeshift like dribbling for 20 seconds and figuring something out, and like he'll say it's because he forgot the plays, and it's like really in reality he's probably not forgetting the plays. Like he's just out there trying to create something, and he's just like, I mean, Todd Pettiford is just fucking awesome. He's Auburn's leading scorer in this tournament so far. He's a freshman, and like that dude is fearless. Like he is like no moment is too big for him. Like Auburn needed somebody to start making some big shots and take that game over last night. And just like Todd Pettiford is a fucking awesome player, and if he sticks around college another year, which I hope he does, like he's going to be a fantastic like guy to watch, and he's gonna be even better next year. Like if he is back in colleges, because that dude is just awesome. And I thought that comparison that Rob made comparing him to Brandon Jennings was a perfect comparison for the kind of player he is.
Yeah, I agree actually. And dude, that shot that he hit, the one where he did like the spin move, the mid range, it got fouled, and I was jumping.
Dude, I got the whole
such an
electric of that on video. Like I was
yeah, I saw you posted it on your. Yeah, I saw you post that on your story, but that was so
funny.
Electrifying, dude. He did take over. I was nervous for Auburn at one point actually, but I kind of did have a feeling they would be able to win this game. They were able to keep the crowd in it a whole lot, even when they were down. They were able to force a lot of turnovers. What a good game that was. Very electrifying. I can only imagine the atmosphere.
Dude, it was fucking
you can describe
insane.
A little more for the people listening, like how
the
it was.
the Auburn family fucking showed up in this game. Like that's why, like I'm just like it was. They battled back. Like like I said, Tahad took this game over, man, and the crowd was just electric. Like the Auburn family really just showed out here, and it's like I think the crowd really propelled Auburn in this game and like helped them weather that storm that, like you said, like they got down. There were some terrible calls, obviously, which we'll get into, but like they kept Auburn in it, man. It was just it was fun, man. It was a great night, and just shout out to everybody in the Auburn family who made the trip out there for that game. Like it was energetic, it was loud, like they showed up and they really. Like, and you're the number one overall seed. Like, you should have an advantage like that.
Yeah.
And be able to get a home court advantage. Like, that's what you earn when you have a season like that. And like everybody, like they made it possible for that to actually come to fruition for Auburn, for them to play right down the road and just have an electric crowd behind them in this one.
Yeah, and I like to, even times when Auburn was down, you could see Schneider like hyping up the crowd, going crazy, like hyping him up, stopping what he was doing, and really getting him back in the game.
Oh,
the crowd had a huge, like the crowd, in my opinion, had one of the biggest influences.
The guys were definitely like between Janai and Chad and Dylan Cardwell getting the crowd fired up. It was awesome. And dude, it was cool because like when everybody was leaving, like Dylan Cardwell just came back out on the court by himself and just started fucking like getting everybody, and everybody started like running back to the seats, like cheering for him and stuff. Like he just ran back out there like all by himself when everybody else was
That's
already off the court, just getting them fired up, man. It was fucking fun, man. But that was a great performance. Like you said, there were some nerve wracking moments for sure, and it's like the first half, like it was 3 for 16 from the 3 point line in the first half. I think like the shots were not falling, and that's been an issue for Auburn of late. Is they're definitely not shooting it as well as they did early in the season, especially from the 3 point line. So they're not running teams off the court like they were. But I mean, they went on. I mean, they finished the game on a 39-17 run after they were down 9 points. And this one, it's just like, man, they got it. Like the last 10 minutes of that game just felt like that was the Auburn team that everybody was wondering if they could unlock that level of play again. Like the team that was the number one overall seed, they were wondering if they could get back to that peak, and they did in this game. And man, Janai was just incredible in this game too. Like, there's a reason he's in the National Player of the Year discussion, and like, he missed some shots. Like he missed 11 shots, as Bruce Pearl noted in the press conference, but like Janai was relentless in this game. Uh, Auburn rebounded so well, and everybody was wondering about that matchup with the bigs from Michigan, like how Auburn would match up with their bigs against Michigan's big. It was kind of like a bigs on bigs matchup there, and like I think Auburn's bigs no doubt won this matchup. Like Dylan Cardwell, I think he only finished the game with 1 point, but like he was. Dylan Cardwell is just the unsung hero of Auburn, and he has been for a few years now, where he gives his team energy. He was awesome on the glass like last night. I don't know how off the top of my head how many offensive rebounds we had, but Dylan Cardwell was just getting up on the glass, like beating Wolf and Golden to these balls and keeping possessions alive for Auburn, and like one of the main contributors to getting the crowd into it too. Like Auburn definitely won that matchup of the bigs versus the bigs. I mean, I don't remember what the rebounding like finish was, but Auburn out rebounded them by a lot, and that was the difference here. That Auburn, like Golden, was
Yeah.
a non-factor in this game. They completely took Golden out of the game, and then Danny Wolf didn't make a shot for like the last 13 minutes of the game. Um, Auburn really did a great job winning that matchup of the bigs. That was kind of the big discussion of this game. No pun intended coming into it.
My thoughts on the game. I think Auburn was playing. Auburn had an extremely impressive performance in the second half. I know you talked about the bad calls. It's been that way the whole year. Michigan, when you're playing Michigan, you're playing 8-on-5, and I think Michigan just ran out. They had been on borrowed time for quite a while in this tournament. They've had a good season, good first year under Dusty May to make the Sweet 16. Kind of a little bit. They don't have the guard play to keep up with Auburn, and we finally saw that. Like you said, I think Tahad Pettiford is going to go in the NBA draft. He's going to be one of those guys that, he's just going to go because he's going to get a guaranteed first. He's going to be a first rounder. So drafted more on potential than anything. But yeah, great performance by Auburn. I had them winning this game regardless of who it was in it. So yeah, that's all I can say about that.
First of all, I don't think I've ever been more wrong about a basketball team than I have about this Michigan team. I thought San Diego would beat them. I thought A&M would beat them. I thought Auburn would crush them. Danny Wolf is the only reason that this game was close for Michigan. He is like just offensively incredibly gifted. He will probably be a pretty good pro himself. But yeah, he was actually kind of the best player on the floor for stretches of that game, and was really the only reason Michigan was in there.
Can I just add about Wolf real quick though? I mean, we're talking about him in the NBA and last night. His passing is fucking awful. That's like his
Well,
one.
and this is
Some of these
where, I mean,
passes he was throwing last night, I was like, what what are you doing? Like,
so it was really bad. I mean, for him and Janai both, you were kind of like, these are two incredible big men, and both were just, I'm like, where are you throwing that ball, kind of thing. So he and
do you think
Janai
it
both
might have
had
been
to.
like the ball? Like everybody talks about the
Yeah,
balls
I
being like
don't know.
overinflated in the tournament because like some of these, like I said it to you guys in the group chat, and like I just sorry to interrupt you about Wolf, but like that was like my main takeaway with him was just like some of these passes were just awful.
Yeah,
Like
the passes were shocking from the bigs, especially. And Wolf, yeah, Wolf and Janai both were like, hey, these are the two NBA bound big men, and neither of them seem to be able to pass here. So that was kind of that was interesting. But yeah, Danny Wolf's a stud. He really carried Michigan completely, and yeah, without him, they would have gotten run off the floor. And but it was it was a fun game to watch nonetheless, just because of the Duke played Texas Tech in the Sweet 16, Coach K's last season. Jeremy Roach had a very similar performance to what Todd Pettiford had for Auburn, where they just kind of were like, offenses, we're not running anything. We're just going to have him either find his shot or create one for someone else. So he, that was really enjoyable to see him finally, somebody beat this Michigan team. And man, yeah, when Dusty May gets his guys in there, that is going to be a serious issue for everyone else because that team had no business going as far as they did. But yeah, credit to Auburn. That was a fun game to watch. The better team won. And yeah, certainly, I will more than happily admit I was wrong on Todd Pettiford if he does go one and done to the NBA and is a first rounder. I just did not see, like, mostly defensively and just his size. I did not see that, but yeah, size wise still lacks, but he certainly put on a performance yesterday for the ages. I'm sure for the Auburn fans, and yeah, I do not see them having, of all the Elite Eight games, I would say that Florida should destroy Texas Tech and Auburn should really handle Michigan State.
yeah, I mean that just the way Auburn was able to weather that storm last night, man. It was just like they reached that level of basketball they needed to get back to win a national championship that we saw. And it's been a long time since we saw that team show back up. And just the flip switched, man, and they got back to that level of play that they needed to get. And if they can play like that for 40 minutes against Michigan State and anybody who comes after that, like they can and should win a national championship playing that level of basketball if they can like sustain that for an entire 40 minutes. And they're like Broome had not been playing his best basketball, especially in the first two games of this tournament. He wasn't great, but Broome really he got back to the Janai Broome that was in the National Player of the Year discussions last night because he was awesome in this game. I mean, he got I think he finished with 20. I think it was 24 points, 17 rebounds or something like that. Let me get the exact stat line here.
22-16, 9 offensive rebounds. Pretty good. He had a couple steals. So.
Yeah, and that's like what I was alluding to is how all that matchup of the bigs. I mean, Auburn's bigs, Cardwell and Broome and Chaney Johnson too, just absolutely dominated on the glass against Michigan's bigs. Like,
yeah, they definitely did better than most people expected.
Yeah, and you could tell whose bigs were more physical and tougher and ready for this matchup, and it was definitely an advantage to the bigs of Auburn, and that was the difference here.
Absolutely.
But yeah, no, great stuff. Gotta love it. I had to mention fucking Trey Donaldson, fucking loser, and I've only said nice stuff about Trey Donaldson all year after he transferred. But him fucking coming out and doing the too small to Hod Pettiford, and then I don't think he made a shot the rest of the game. Like, hey, how'd that work out for you? And then Tahad hit one over him late and hit the too small. Or no, Janai dunked on him and hit the too small, back on him after he did that. Yeah, I mean, that's crazy because, and like I said, I've only said nice things about Trey this entire year after he transferred. Like, wished him the best, and yeah, he came out, I guess, thinking he had something to prove, and he played like shit in this game. So, and that was really the difference here in general. Is Michigan's guards just were not ready for the moment, and once they met some pressure from some real guard play and it's like some guys who can really get after you on defense on the perimeter, they were not ready. Like Matt said, like Wolf was the only reason they were even in this game, and it's not even like Wolf was shooting it particularly well. He was just getting every freaking call he needed to get. Um, but yeah, that's anybody else got anything on that game?
Okay, I'm back.
You got anything else on Auburn and Michigan, Jacob?
I do not.
All right. Well, we can go back in order and talk about the other game in Atlanta, the Michigan State Ole Miss game. And
Mhm.
this is a game where Ole Miss really dominated this game. Ole Miss led for 30 something minutes of this game. Like, Ole Miss was the better team in this game, man. But Michigan State, like, they're just a relentless team. They defend their asses off, and like they were able to just hang around. And Jace Richardson was able to wake up and really get them back in this one and take it over and ultimately make the difference. But Ole Miss was really the better team in this one and should have won the game.
Yeah, I thought it was a really really entertaining game. You were there, right, Travis? Correct.
Mm.
For this early game, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty awesome, and it was cool to see Izzo get a little emotional after the fact. He definitely loves his team, but I think for next round going forward, I know Michigan State lost to Michigan not too long ago, but I do think they're honestly a better team than Michigan. So I think they could give Auburn a little bit more fits than Auburn had in this last game. But no, this game against Ole Miss was definitely a very good game.
Yeah.
Game.
I think Michigan State was kind of they weren't playing their best game in the first half, and I just knew, sort of like the Florida game, I figured Michigan State was going to turn it on, and they did. In that second half, they locked down on Ole Miss's shooters, just kind of got what they needed to on the boards, and picked it up offensively. Jace Richardson, of course, he's gonna be a good NBA player one day. Great NBA player, I think. I think Michigan State is the better team by a lot over Ole Miss. So
we talked earlier about building the right roster and the portal and everything, and I hate to give Chris Beard credit for anything because he's a piece of shit, but I will give him credit for the fact that like this was a roster that was built entirely out of the portal. Like, this was a complete throw a roster together, spend what money we have, and let's try to make a basketball team out of this. And like, I don't think anybody did a better job just completely assembling a roster out of the portal than Chris Beard did. Chris Beard did this year, and it damn near was able to get him to the Elite Eight. But probably the best season Ole Miss basketball has ever had. And this is a roster that he just completely threw together out of the portal. Like, they didn't bring anything back from last year's team, and they put together a roster this offseason that was awesome, and that they had some damn good players on this team.
Yeah, Ole Miss was the better team. I think Ole Miss was better than Michigan State, and they deserved to win that game. Chris Beard was probably rightly complaining about the free throw disparity after the game. That was the only statistical category that Michigan State really took it to Ole Miss with, and frustrating for Ole Miss. They're a physical team. They generated 8 steals yesterday, but yeah. Credit where it's due. Michigan State finds ways to win. It seems better than any team remaining, just in games that they have really no business winning. So, yeah, it's. I do not think it frustrates me because I do not think Michigan State should get crushed by Auburn, but they're obviously not going to, and that obviously is going to be a close game, and they'll somehow grit their way to being down 4 with 20 seconds or something with the ball. So who knows? But overall, yeah, really successful season for Ole Miss, and more successful for Ole Miss is keeping Chris Beard as a coach there, because now with some of these jobs filled, especially Indiana, seems like he's going to be back for another season. So that would be a pretty big time for Ole Miss to keep him around.
Oh, they got the
So yeah,
cartoons dancing back on here.
Hold your
jeez.
horses. If Kevin Willard leaves to or goes to Maryland, or not Maryland, to Villanova, it's been reported that Buzz Williams might go to Maryland, and then Chris Beard goes to Texas A&M. Is what it's
Farewell,
like.
Buzz. Farewell. You had a great
Well,
run at
yeah,
A&M.
I
I'm
mean,
looking forward
regardless,
to never
having
having to play you again. Have a good run with the Terps, Buzz. Enjoy the Big Ten,
having
Buzz.
Beard in
Thank
the
you for
SEC
your
is still a big
contributions to
deal.
the
But
SEC. I am
yeah,
so
so
happy that we will never have to play Buzz Williams unless it's in the tournament. Because my God, I hated playing Buzz Williams so
yeah,
much.
I noticed no more timeout calls at half court, but yeah, overall, yeah, credit gutty win for Michigan State, and they made a ton of free throws down the stretch that I did not expect. Ole Miss was very confident fouling some of those guys, and they made him pay. So that was not something I saw coming. So credit to Michigan State there.
And you were mentioning the Chris Beard stuff. Like, we talked about it a little bit in the group chat last night. Well, what Ole Miss has going for him is, like, if you run a program with no morals to employ this guy, considering what he's done, there's not a lot of schools out there who are going to want to associate themselves and have one of the highest paid employees, if not the highest paid employee of their school, being a guy who strangled his wife. So, like, that's I guess when that's the case and that's the guy that you're okay with having representing your university, like, great coach, no doubt. But then there's not a lot of respectable schools out there who are going to want to go ahead and have that guy as a representation, high paid, if not highest paid employee of their institution. So I don't know. I don't know what high level school is going to poach that guy, considering his past and how much of a piece of shit he is. But I mean, we'll see. I don't, like I said, it'll be interesting to see if anybody out there down the road is gonna want to take that chance and associate themselves with that asshole.
And it's a good fit at Ole Miss because he'll always be in Kiffin's shadow, and he's always going to be he'll never be the face of the athletic department at Ole Miss, really. So,
Yep. The Kentucky Tennessee game, I'll be honest, I did not watch really 1 second of, because I was at the other game and it was a blowout, so I didn't go out of my way to watch it or anything. What do you guys got on that one?
Yeah.
I know, just before we get into that game, I was going to say, I think Michigan State, it's going to be close with Auburn. Either way, I think it's going to be one of those down to the wire games like we saw with Ole Miss, and then we saw with Purdue and Houston. I think it's going to be one of those type of games, just down to the wire. But yeah, the Kentucky-Tennessee game, Kentucky just played horribly. They came out, they didn't shoot worth a crap. Tennessee didn't have their greatest offensive game, but they did enough to win. They just kind of controlled the game early in the first.
Berea was like 1 for 9 in this game.
Yeah, the shots were not falling for Kentucky. And yeah, Tennessee is, first of all, this is the third time they've played, and Kentucky won the first 2 matchups. So I think that, anyone who's anyone was not a chance. They beat that Tennessee team 3 times. So yeah, I mean, it was just kind of your run of the mill Tennessee game offensively. Zakai Ziegler had another double-digit assist game, and Chaz shot well. Gainey played a good game. So yeah, it just best players for Kentucky really didn't show up. As you said, Kobe Bryant really struggled, and it was just Tennessee was not going to lose, and they really defended poorly. Kentucky did. giving up 78 points to that Tennessee team playing that style. That is not really acceptable if you're Kentucky. And the first half really just ended the game. Tennessee went way ahead of them in the first half, and they were up by 15 at half. So once that happened, you could kind of feel the game shifting into Tennessee's hands, and that was it. So overall, I would say the Kentucky fan base is really satisfied. I don't know if it's an overcorrection for how they've been the last couple of years, but
I mean, why
Twitter,
shouldn't they be though? Like, because Pope kind of got thrusted in here. Obviously wasn't their first choice. Which, by the way, Matt Jones was on field of 68 last week, and he was telling a story, and just like how this is why I hate Kentucky though, because it's like they listen to this idiot, and he's like their source of information, and then like they all just like parrot after him. So Matt Jones is like, well, yeah, we all thought it was going to be Scott Drew. Dan Hurley was our second choice. We were thinking maybe Dan Hurley too, but we all thought it was going to be Scott Drew. And, that didn't work out. But, there was a list of 6 or 7 guys that we were deciding between. And my phone rang and I was getting the call for who's going to be the next coach. And I just assumed it was going to be Bruce Pearl, but they decided to go with Mark Pope instead. Like, no, you shut the fuck up, dude. You weren't getting Bruce Pearl. And he's just like, oh, I just assumed it was Bruce Pearl, but they decided to go with Mark Pope over Bruce Pearl. Like, yeah, Matt, I'm sure that's how it went. I'm sure that's exactly how it went. Kentucky was like, Bruce Pearl, Nate Oates, or Mark Pope. Let's go with Mark Pope. Like, shut the
yeah.
fuck up, dude. Like, they're so stupid, dude. Matt Jones is a fucking idiot, and he just makes that whole fan base dumber. Like,
Yeah, well, first of all, a Sweet 16 exit used to be like DEFCON 5 for Kentucky basketball if they were not making the Elite Eight or the Final Four. Now they're just like, we are so proud of this team, and
yeah, they finally got out of the first weekend. It's been a while.
I guess if that's now the new standard for that program, I guess good on them. But they seem like very, very happy, very satisfied with where they are, and that Matt Jones take is kind of shocking. They're like, we're going to go in a different
it was going to be Bruce Pearl, but they decided to go with Mark Pope instead.
Yeah, I doubt that very much. That not surprising from those people, but appropriate end to the Kentucky season. Tennessee just mopping them that feels right.
I really do like Mark Pope though. As much as I hate Kentucky and like there's so many idiots around that program, I really do like Mark Pope. Like, he's a good dude, and I think that's where the satisfaction comes from Kentucky fans. It's like Mark Pope got this job. He got it late because of how everything went down. So like he didn't have a lot of time to assemble this roster, and they brought back nothing from last year's team. Like, he built this roster from scratch. They battled injuries all year. Like, obviously Kirk Riso was supposed to be a key contributor for this team, and he was out most of the year. Like, he really built this roster like a makeshift roster with like no real NBA talent. Like, I don't like maybe Kobe Bray will go to the. I guess maybe he'll go to the NBA. Other than that, like, there's no real like NBA talent like high level on this roster. And like, I think with the situation Pope was thrown into, and then like, the injuries they battled this year and how he had to assemble that roster, like, I think he really did do a good job, like, getting the most out of this team for how everything came together for him. Like, I do think if you're a Kentucky fan, you have to be satisfied with how Pope was able to get things done year one, and you really have to feel like your program's going in the right direction.
Yeah, I'm not going to say he was thrown into the situation. He willingly took the job. He was not like the Rodney Terry or something, and they filled Rupp Arena for his Midnight Madness and everything. So they knew he knew what he signed up for. I will say he did a really good job once that roster went haywire during the season. He did not have his full complement of players most of the season and still did a really good job. So I will give him a ton of credit for that. And yeah, I think, he fits Kentucky. Obviously, he's one of their own, and it's just a much different situation. They're probably going to be much more patient with him there than obviously what they've been with Cal or coaches before him. So yeah, I think it's cool. It's good for the sport. But yeah, that honeymoon phase will wear off pretty soon here, and the expectations will be pretty high, especially if it's 4 SEC teams in the Final Four, and Kentucky is not one of them. So I think those expectations will go back up here pretty soon.
Anybody else got a comment on the Mark Pope stuff?
I don't really have much else to say.
Hey, real quick, because the game's coming up, I do not know what I want to bet in Texas Tech, Florida.
I took Florida.
I would say Florida beat the spread.
I mean,
What is the spread?
it's 7. I think Texas Tech can keep that close, and then like the over under. Like I'd probably lean over here, but these are also two teams that can grind it out. So I don't think it's necessarily like you have to take the over here. I don't know. I was just curious to get some perspectives on where I should take, because I got about a half an hour to decide what I'm going to bet in that one.
I'd probably lean on the over as well.
158 is the number.
Yeah, I'm looking at it here. I would probably lean over. But based off of how our brackets have gone this year, I don't know if you want advice from us.
Yeah. Well, we got one more game to talk about, and that's the Jacob special.
Yeah.
Purdue did everything in their power to win this game. They played an awesome game, like no doubt. Like they kept this thing close, and freaking it just came down to that one, like that last play. Like Braden Smith just made a mistake defensively where he cut out to guard the shooter and didn't guard the inbounder and just left the inbounder wide open. And it was a heads-up play by Houston to get the ball back to him to get that game-winning shot. But as awesome as Braden Smith was, yeah, like that definitely was his mistake defensively that put him that that kind of gave that up. That's nothing to take away from Braden Smith because he's obviously the only reason this game was even close. I heard this insane stat that he scored or assisted on every Purdue point in the second half.
He
That is
went
insane.
insane. He was insane. He was getting triple team too. Like Houston was throwing like blanket coverage on Braden Smith, and he still got the basket. He had 15 assists. I saw a stat. Oh, he what was it? I forget what it was, but I think he's like he may be like the only player to have like 2 15 assist games in the NCAA tournament. Something crazy like that. I'm not sure. I forget what the exact stat was, but he played excellent. Going into this game, a lot of people thought Houston was just going to roll over Purdue. I said on the show last week I figured we'd probably lose, but it would be a close one either way. It'd be a heartbreaker, and I got it right, unfortunately for me. But I'm proud of this team. We freaking battled the whole year, battled through injury, having Jacobson out early in the season. A lot of youth compared to these other teams in the Sweet 16. We played one of the toughest schedules in the country. Played Auburn. Played all these physical teams that threw the kitchen sink at us. And against Houston, we were right there. Houston was the better team. Obviously, they're the better team. Miles Houston took over for them, won the game. Obviously, it's frustrating to lose that way, but I think going into the offseason, this Purdue team, they have the setup to be a national title team next year, 100%. I know Matt Painter did a tremendous coaching job this season. I think he is one of the best coaches in the nation, 100%. He doesn't get the true talent like some of these coaches, or have a insane NIL money, like oil money, like freaking Texas A&M or places like that. He just finds players he likes, identifies them early in the recruiting process, and builds a team. Braden Smith, lawyer, TKR. Cam Heide was huge. That 3 to tie the game late was huge. Colvin hit some big shots in the second half, even though he was kind of struggling in the first. They had – I was getting kind of bleak, and Houston came out and punched in the second half after Purdue took the lead at the end of the first. I was kind of worried, but we went on a run, battled back. The Purdue fans were into the game. You could hear the boiler up. I think this team, there's nothing to be like disappointed or crazy mad about. This is about where I expected us this year, in the Sweet 16. But yeah, going into the offseason, I'm excited for the future. It left me wanting more. I do have to mention, it's not the refs kind of had some terrible calls both ways. The big one being the push off that wasn't called with like two seconds left in the game that set up the final play. There's also a terrible one out of bounds call that wasn't called. It was off of Houston. I think it happened a couple times throughout the game. But yeah,
Matt Painter was very animated with the refs.
Bro, yeah. They were freaking terrible. That was a terrible call. You can't even. I get that it's the end of the game, but you've got to call that when it's that much of an extension.
I think it's really similar to the Queen play that we talked about, where if it's a travel, you got to call travel. If it's an offensive foul, you got to call an offensive foul. And then there's that gray area of like, well, are we really going to decide the game on this type thing? So yeah, I think it falls in that same type of discussion with that no call.
Because I know it would have just went to overtime. It would have just I mean, anyway, honestly, they decided the game more by leaving that 2.8 seconds, setting up that out of bounds play. It's kind of like, just call the game. If it falls, falls the way. Call what you need to call. If it was like just incidental contact or something, I'd be fine with them not calling it. But it's just like, come on, man. Can't let that determine the game, because it was a back and forth game. Talking about this game, this was probably the best game of the tournament so far. If I had to say, like, just the amount of intensity both teams were throwing at each other. Just two coaching legends going at each other, throwing their defense. I do have to give credit to Purdue's defense too. Like, we at times this year, we just kind of struggled, and we didn't let Houston get easy shots. They were just hitting. They were efficient, and yeah, I mean, that's all I can say about that. So.
Yeah, I think intensity-wise, it was one of the best games in the entire tournament. I felt like it was one that could have gone either way, but there at the end, it didn't happen to roll the Boilermakers' way. Houston's a very great. I mean, these were a clash of two very good teams in the Sweet 16, but Houston just happened to get it at the end. They did shoot pretty efficient. 15 assists though from Braden Smith. That's
that was
pretty
wild.
Good in basketball. Yeah, especially when he was getting double, triple teams, not getting that many turnovers. Because let's see, 15 assists, only 3 turnovers for all the stuff they were doing to him. So he's definitely one of the better players in the nation. But I guess they just couldn't end up pulling this one off. Great game though. But from a Boilermakers perspective, it's a really tough way to finish out the year in a game this close. So when they really had it right there, they're very close to pulling this off, but couldn't end up doing it.
We didn't make many mistakes. I know there was a lot of worry that we were going to turn the ball over a ton going into the game.
No,
We stepped up. We played smart ball.
Yeah, there was only they only have 7 turnovers the whole game. Purdue did. So.
Yeah. The Braden Smith improvement arc is super impressive. Last year, obviously, I've mentioned a few times how, Steph Castle just made it his mission to make Braden Smith obsolete in that national championship game, and he did, and shut him down. And ever since, Braden Smith yesterday, that's one of the better point guard performances you'll ever see from a team that really was not playing up to his level. He managed to elevate the guys around him really, really well. Particularly, I mean, there were just so many plays he made in that game where, the best play he made, the tying shot where he, everyone in the building thinks that he's going to shoot it. Instead, he creates a shot, draws a double team, and finds Colvin in the corner for the tying 3. That was like him in a nutshell, that game. He is one of the better, just vision, passing. He's, got everything you look for in a college point guard. But yeah, he was really fun to watch yesterday. He is, the heart and soul of that team, and sucks for him that it had to end that way. But yeah, just, another 40-minute game, the 15 assists, the basically carrying of his entire team. Impressive stuff by him there. But yeah, and again, that's just how good Houston is. LJ Cryer, who basically won them that Gonzaga game, was terrible yesterday and could not make anything. And they had Uzan and Sharp just step up and carry them. And yeah, defensively, they always come to play. That defense is always going to travel. Can count on in every game, and they are efficient. Like we've talked about before on here, the shooters are the only ones who shoot. They do not take bad shots. They do not get goaded into bad shots usually. They do not play a style of basketball they are not comfortable playing. So, yeah, it's going to be, I would take the under in that Tennessee game. But, yeah, that was a fun game to watch yesterday. We said it before on here. Houston's a better team. They deserve to win. But, Purdue gave them everything they had. And unfortunately for them, that was not good enough there. The depth, Purdue's depth, just not good enough. Colvin and Heidi played well, but just
they played really
that
did.
Was probably their best games, and Colvin had that huge shot in the corner to tie it. But yeah, ultimately,
what killed us is our rebounding.
Yeah,
ultimately.
rebounding and Trey Coffin being in foul trouble. Yeah,
which is what we're going to work on in the offseason. I've already know that we're going after some big men in the portal. Plus, we get Jacobson back, so that shouldn't be an issue with next year's team. So
that Tennessee Houston game, I just wanted to say, referencing that's going to be the game that every if you're a coach of kids playing basketball, or you're a parent and your kids playing basketball, that Tennessee Houston game is going to be the game you show kids and be like, this is how you play basketball right here. And then the BYU Alabama game is going to be the opposite, and that's going to be, or that was the opposite. That's going to be this
young man. This is how you box out. This is how you defend the screen. This is how you set a screen. Yeah, that's going to be the grinding. It's fitting that game is played in Indiana, because that's
the Hoosiers. Hoosiers versus the AAU ball.
Yeah, I want you guys to count how many times that Houston and Tennessee dive on the ball.
Over under one is 124. Over under is 124.
Probably fitting, and it's Houston's minus 2.5. I would probably take Tennessee plus the 2.5.
Yeah, I think Tennessee's going to win that game.
I think so as well. I think Tennessee's going to beat them, but
this is the difference between this Houston team and the last two Houston teams that have gone out in the Sweet 16 is they've gone out in the Sweet 16 the last couple of years and they couldn't break 60 points. And you saw last night, this Houston team has a few more guys that can score that make the difference, that this Houston team can break 60 points and make some big shots when they need it. Whereas the last couple teams, it's they've had one guy that can score the ball on the last couple teams, and if that wasn't good enough, then like they were just going down. And then it obviously happened like last year with the injury with Cryer, and like that was pretty much the death of them last year. And now it's like it's different this year where this Houston team has a few guys that can score now. So like if one guy goes down, they have enough other guys that they can still keep up in a game, and they're not just all relying on getting all their production from one player
Well,
like the last couple of
it's more just they can win a game with shot making now. I mean, they before that was never in their MO or their makeup. Now they can win a game with shot making, and that's not something they could do before. So it's not going to be like a volume of threes that's going to beat another team, but it is going to be more like the efficiency of the 3-point shooting for them is definitely better than it's been in years. So, yeah, I think, it is a team that can score into the 70s now and still play that kind of defense. So, yeah, it is the best offensive team that Sampson's had at Houston, probably, the whole time since he's been there. And, yeah, I mean, we're not having this discussion if Jamal Shedd doesn't get hurt last year. They're in the Final Four.
I said Cryer, yeah, I meant Shedd.
Yeah, but still, so we'll see. But Tennessee's going to be tough on him, man. That's going to be grind fest.
It was the same 2 years ago, because remember 2 years ago was Sasser was banged up.
Yeah,
and that really hurt that team.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, yeah, they just, like you say, like, this Houston team is a little bit better offensively than those Houston teams in the past that were just so offensively challenged and could only win a game one way. And, like, but I do think Tennessee's going to win this game.
I think so as well.
I'm with you on that.
I do know one thing, that might be the most empty Elite Eight game you'll see, just because of how far it's away from both fan bases.
Tennessee will fill it.
It's not that far from Tennessee.
Tennessee
but have their contingent there. I don't know how.
I mean, Florida and Texas
Friday night
a lot further away from where they are than that one.
There wasn't many Tennessee fans there last night.
More
I'm sure
Kentucky. I'm sure Purdue and Kentucky fans probably gobbled up most of those tickets, but like. It's not that far from Tennessee. It's 5 hours from Knoxville. I'm sure Tennessee fans will show up there, and then because you're talking about that. I mean, we got Florida and Texas Tech about to play each other in San Francisco. Yeah. So, like, I think that's a lot more of an example of what you're talking about than I like Tennessee fans will show up there.
Yeah, they'll be there. Peyton Manning will be there. Yeah, the whole thing.
How was I because I didn't get to watch a lot of the game because I was at mine. Like, how was the Lucas Oil Stadium end zone environment?
I mean, it wasn't too bad. For Purdue, the Purdue-Houston game obviously was a lot more rowdy than Kentucky-Tennessee for obvious reasons. But yeah, I mean, it was a pretty good setup. It looked nice. I know the dark. They kind of had like the dark ambience over the court. I think that kind of fit.
Were you at the game, Jacob?
No, I wasn't.
Oh, I got you. I saw pictures, but I wasn't sure.
I was gonna go if we went to the Elite Eight, but that didn't happen. So
those sight lines just have to be awful in person at that one. I mean, like, if we win on Sunday, I'm going to go to the Final Four next week. Like, I'm sure whatever tickets we end up with won't exactly be the best sight lines there.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Man, have any of you been to a Final Four? Like,
no,
I'm not now.
I remember actually back in the day, I don't know if y'all remember, we were planning to go to the one, it was back like when Travis and I were like seniors. We were talking about going to one. But no, I've never been to a Final Four. I know my dad went back in the day. It was in 2008 when Memphis was in the Final Four. I think we were referencing that game against Kansas earlier, but he was at those games.
No, I am curious if we do end up going, how bad though. I'm gonna have to take a pretty funny picture if we go and I'm way up. They'll like call it both ways, ref.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like,
how'd you miss that call? You're blind, ref.
I mean, because if we go, we definitely won't be buying fucking courtside or anything.
Right.
It'll kind of just be sit where we sit. So
Just
I'm sure. Like I said, I'm sure the sight lines will be pretty hilarious.
just sneak in like
But
that
I mean,
one guy did to the college football
I've been to
championship.
wrestling. Like wrestling's kind of the same way, where it's like a smaller, like, because like basketball court is pretty small. It's the same with wrestling. Like the ring's pretty small. It's like I went to like a WrestleMania and a Royal Rumble that were in like WrestleMania was at the Bucks Stadium and Royal Rumble was at the Rays Tropicana. And like it was like pretty far away from that, so it's like the same kind of idea where it's like so far away, but like you can still keep track of what's going on. But yeah, I mean, we got this game coming up. Anybody got any picks they want to make real quick, or anything they're watching in these games before we call it a wrap?
I've got my picks I made for my bracket. All my Final Four still alive, but I've got, of course, I got Duke over Alabama.
I do too.
Florida over Texas Tech, Michigan State over Auburn, and Houston over Tennessee.
But I'll say with the other, I'll throw out that Houston Tennessee because that one's expected to be close and could go either way. So I don't think it's really like an upset either way. But like in the other three games that are on paper more one-sided, what do you think is the most likely upset of those three?
Definitely Bama over Duke.
You think so?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. I see that.
What do you think, Christian? Best chance of an upset of those three?
Yeah, actually, Matt. Yeah, I would say Bama over Duke is probably the most likely. But at this point, I think it's going to be probably all one seeds. And while I like to follow a lot of mid-major ball, and I like to see the Cinderella stories. I like to see them get this far, but even though there's not a whole lot of underdogs in here at all, actually, these are still some awesome matchups. These are some heavyweight bouts the rest of the way through. Not any Cinderella, but these are all going to be great games, instant classics, a lot of them. So I'm really excited for these next couple of days of games. So
yeah, I'll take Florida and Auburn, Bama, Tennessee. Let's go all SEC in the final.
Okay. All SEC.
Hopefully,
let's go all SEC.
I still have my national championship pick.
Let's have Travis mingle with the Bama fans for.
God, please fucking no! Don't put that.
No.
I haven't even thought about like the possibility of that. Like we're gonna be on the Riverwalk with fucking Bama fans.
Yeah.
My God. Bama fans are going to be at fucking SeaWorld. That's a real Tide right there.
I don't give a piss about the Tide.
Roll Tide Willie shows up.
Yeah, Willie.
Feinbaum should just do a show from the Riverwalk or something at that point.
Just interviewing people.
Yeah.
Talking to all the fucking animals, like the penguins at SeaWorld, are going to be fucking hiding. They're going to be like, what are these fucking creatures? Like, I haven't seen this before.
It's funny as shit.
Holy shit. I haven't even considered the possibility of that. Please, no. Like, I don't want my Final Four trip to be fucking ruined by having to, like, granted, there won't be a lot of fucking Bama fans there because, I mean, let's face it. It ain't football.
That's how it was last year. Last year it was like 80% Purdue fans, 10% UConn fans, and like 5% NC State fans, and or maybe a little bit more NC State fans, and like 2% Bama fans.
When I was watching the Auburn Alabama State game, when I was there, actually, like, there was a guy behind us we were talking to who went to NC State, and he went to the Final Four last year. So, but all right, let's call this thing a wrap. Let's get on out of here because this game's about to tip. We timed this up pretty good, but turned into a kind of a recap / pregame show. But yeah, everybody enjoy the games, and we'll be back on tomorrow, Monday. I don't know. We'll figure out the time, but at some point to get ready for the Final Four. But appreciate you guys. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Yeah, enjoy these games tonight. Let's go.
Yes, sir.